Finally, Tom has come back to debating about fictional characters, power rankings, monster fights, all the things that make being a geek fun. In all seriousness, how's everyone doing? Welcome, welcome. It is Saturday morning here on the Pacific North Coast, but I'm sure some of you are all over the world, so good morning, good evening, good night. It's all the same. I'm happy to have you here with me today. How is everyone doing? It's been a while. Haven't been streaming since Godzilla Mad Libs. That was pretty fun. Did that, I think, a week or two ago. Since then, I've been working pretty hard on working on the VFX for Godzilla vs. Batman Part 2. Especially since I'm super pumped about the upcoming DC Universe Monsterverse crossover that we're going to be seeing, I think, in October. So that's going to be fun. But anyway, just a couple things. So the point of this is kind of like just a good way to spend the next couple hours chatting with fans. We get to like talk about who we think would win and some really cool hypothetical fights that I have in store. But, you know, it's just basically a chance to chat. Some of you might have some questions about upcoming projects and such. So let's just sit back, relax, have a good time. I understand that when we get into it, when we start like going over who do we think is gonna win or who's more powerful, let's I like to remind everyone that it's okay to be serious, but you know, let's not take things personally. You know, let's just have a good time. I mean, we're talking about fictional characters and fictional universes governed by fictional physics. None of this makes sense. Everything they do is because the plot calls for it. But we could still have fun. We could still enjoy ourselves. We could still learn more about the characters, the story. And you know what? It's a good time. It's a good way to just, I think, develop greater appreciation for the source material. So, anyway, here's what I have in store. So some of you, if you haven't yet already, I started this new video series called Kaiju Karnage. The whole point of it is it will, at least for now, for the time being, consist of 2 kaiju locked in battle. And I'm trying to pick kaiju who will very much likely never actually fight on the big screen or, you know, in an official capacity. But that's where YouTubers like me come in. You know, we get to have and entertain those hypothetical battles. And, well, long story short, I will specify, of course, what kind of kaiju they are, which variant, certain, you know, specifics regarding this matchup, just so, you know, we can have some grounding, you know, some ground rules in order to make this little, you know, this sort of fight a bit more feasible to contemplate. But what I'm going to do is show you what sort of battles are in store. This is for what I'm calling the first season of Kaiju Karnage. It will consist of 8 battles. 8 battles for the first season. It's kind of, it may or may not be a tournament per se. I mean, honestly, I might, when it comes to, when I conclude this first season, I will likely just, you know, I will likely just go with an entirely new roster to work with on the next one. But who knows? We'll see what happens when we get there. So let's bring this up. I am going to show you guys step by step the monsters we're going to be seeing in this upcoming Kaiju Karnage tournament. Alright, so these guys you know very well. This is from the very first episode. We had Heisei Godzilla, who, on this side, on my left, fighting against Final Wars Godzilla on my right, or your left. And this is a very classic sort of matchup between two of the arguably the most powerful live-action Godzilla incarnations. So, for the record, I still maintain that MonsterVerse Godzilla is more powerful than both of these guys. But, again, just to, stick to just a confrontation between these two monsters, the only time you might hear me bring up any other kaiju is if I'm doing what is called scaling, trying to compare notes in order to determine who's actually stronger, who's more powerful, and such. Alright, so Heisei Godzilla, his main advantage is the fact that he is, for all intents and purposes, kind of like the kaiju equivalent to Marvel's The Hulk. The longer he fights, the more powerful he becomes. And even though I think Final Wars Godzilla has, just insane amounts of firepower, and if he played it seriously, he immediately went full maximum, I'm going to unleash my meteor-busting atomic beam, he could end this relatively quickly. I'm not saying Final Wars Godzilla would be able to kill Heisei Godzilla. I don't think he can. But Final Goji does have the firepower to basically put Heisei's lights out for the foreseeable future. Now, Heisei has a number of advantages still in his favor, and yeah, I'm not gonna talk about these two fighting much because I have a whole video for that. I'm trying to do my best to summarize. And yeah, for those of you who didn't know, I did specify at the very beginning of that video that these are essentially both monsters are in their base levels. Heisei is where he was at in 1994 when he went up against Space Godzilla. Final Wars Godzilla has not yet received his Kaiser power-up from Ozaki and the Gatango and such. Okay. Oh, hey, what's up, Javara Productions? This is a matchup I am planning on making. Oh, that is super exciting. Is this going to be a stop motion, animation? Let us know. Tell you what, a stop motion battle between these two it's very tempting. I mean, if I were to, maybe in future, if Kaiju Karnage becomes more of a bigger deal, I might kind of go down the death battle route and not only try to, provide analysis, but also maybe stop motion animation just to show you how I think the fight would go, through the general practice of filmmaking. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, Javara, who do you think would win in this sort of fight? Who are you leaning towards? Or maybe you're not leaning. Maybe you have a more, pretty clear understanding on who the winner would be. Because, truth be told, I do think this is a fight that becomes less and less obvious, more difficult to gauge the longer it continues on, because even though Heisei's regeneration and durability gives him a much needed edge, or at the very least an opportunity to stay in the battle and maybe, find a way to win, which I think he has a pretty good way of winning. It's called the Spiral Blast. It's extremely powerful. It's like Heisei Godzilla's Atomic Breath, just several times stronger. The thing is, Final Wars Godzilla he's been kind of characterized as being both a Heisei Showa Godzilla hybrid. By that I mean, he's got the raw power of Heisei Godzilla. not to mention stupendous levels of durability. He lacks the regeneration, the insane healing factor Heisei has. Now, Final Goji still has a healing factor. It's just nowhere near as good as Heisei Godzilla's. But he's a tactical fighter. He's pretty well, I'd say, experienced in combat. And even though a lot of the monsters Final Wars Godzilla just absolutely stomped on his global tour of awesome, they're not, well, you know, noteworthy, to say the least. I do think that even if, say, Final Wars Anguirus or King Caesar are not, you know, strong monsters in their own right, I do think the fact that they're all within Heisei Godzilla's weight class. I mean, Final Wars Anguirus is 60,000 tons, and Final Wars Godzilla just knocked him around like a literal, pun intended, soccer ball. That, to me, completely, like, offsets any real need to focus on just how strong Anguirus, King Caesar, Rodan, or any of the other Final Wars monsters are, just by pointing out the fact that Final Wars Godzilla is so dang strong that even if we were to try and argue who's stronger, Heisei or Final Wars, they're both so strong that it defeats the point. They're both going to be throwing each other around like toys across whatever battlefield is hosting them. So it is going to be a fight of attrition. And I think, honestly, Heisei has that advantage. But yeah, again, I've already talked about this more in detail in Kaiju Karnage Episode 1, Heisei Godzilla vs. Final Wars Godzilla. Check it out someday if you haven't already. I do intend to come back, maybe, and do a follow-up, like a rematch between the two, you know, pitting their most powerful versions against each other. Meltdown, Heisei Godzilla taking on Kaiser, Final Wars Godzilla. That would be just extremely explosive. It's like a nuclear meltdown times 10, right? It would just, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. Let's see. Javara Productions, maybe Heisei Godzilla, but I'm not sure who I'm going to make win at the moment. Fair enough, man. Yeah, you know, I side with Heisei, but they're both so dang powerful that one thing that I haven't really talked about much is, especially when it comes to pitting Godzillas against each other, is that they both absorb radiation, right? They both love atomic energy. They're fueled by it. So there is the chance that every time you have one of these powerful Godzillas go up against each other, you kind of have to acknowledge the fact that it's likely an eternal struggle. Both are just going to, even though they could, you know, hurt each other with their atomic beams. I mean, we've seen Godzillas get hurt before. I mean, Heisei didn't like having his own beam reflected back at him by Space Godzilla. It'll still, even though it hurts, they could still absorb the radiation and therefore might get stronger as the fight, you know, carries on. So it's fun to talk about these two. I've debated about who I think would win off and on for years. I kind of have gone back and forth, to be fair, because there's still, I mean, just shifting the variables on, like, say, the battlefield, for instance, could change the outcome of the fight, etc., etc. But hey, let's carry on. Let's see who we got next. This is a good one. All right. We have Hedorah, the smog monster, taking on Destroya, the living embodiment of the Oxygen Destroyer. This is a true clash between titans. We are looking at two of the most terrifying kaiju Godzilla has ever fought. And just so that we're all on the same page, we are talking about the live action variants, namely Showa era Hedorah. So I don't really, unless specified otherwise, I don't really take, say, feats of power from novels, from animated shows or comic books, and attribute them to either of these monsters. Everything that we would talk about and break down comes from their respective movies. Both of them only have one movie to their name, so it narrows things down considerably. So first, before we get into who I think might win this fight, and by all means, everybody in the chat or leave a comment, tell me who you think would win and why, and I will be more than happy to read them off. Don't think just because I'm the only voice here, it's very one-sided, these sort of streams, these chats. I mean, I'm sure everyone shouts at their computers at me all the time. It's cool. I can hear you. I will totally read what you have to say, and I will steelman your position so that we're on the same page, and if I disagree, I will explain why. And then you can respond back, and we'll continue until we're both satisfied. But let's just talk about briefly how absolutely apocalyptic it would be if these two not only, I don't want to say were real per se, but what would happen if these two creatures of the apocalypse fought? No planet that they would fight on would be safe. Alright, so both of these monsters are capable of multiplying. They just go about it kind of in different ways, but they have a great deal in common. They're both capable of multiplying and transforming into stronger, more powerful forms. Hedorah feeds off of pollution, and as long as he remains hydrated, he can continue to grow. He feeds off of pollution, he grows bigger, he can branch off, multiply. I mean, there's always the fear that if you do happen to blow off like a part of Hedorah, it could grow into another smaller Hedorah, which then in turn could grow bigger, and you get the same problem. Hedorah is extremely dangerous. It can fly over in a city and literally reduce its population to zero within seconds. It does this by spraying extremely toxic sulfuric acid, which is already pretty bad in itself, but I think Hedorah's is even worse because within mere moments it's reducing people to skeletons. It's pretty scary stuff. Back to Destroya, however. Destroya here, I wrote an article a couple years ago for Toho Kingdom, a kaiju analysis article, where I did so much research on Destroya, not just in the movie, the Japanese version, of course, where I could get the most comprehensive information, but source guides, material, everything you can name, I did that research. And I am telling you, despite the fact that Destroya may not be able to win fights directly, he's still, I think, pound for pound, one of the most dangerous kaiju out there. And the reason why is because Destroya is a colony of billions of microbes, all united by a singular consciousness and intent to destroy the living, and it's powered by an unknown energy type, which later in the movie we find out is the same energy that powered the Oxygen Destroyer. Destroya, you gotta think of it less, though, as a microbe colony gone awry, and more like its own ecosystem. Destroya can literally sustain itself indefinitely, and it does this by feeding off of micro-oxygen. Micro-oxygen increases its number, the amount of microbes it has, and in turn it can actually, thanks to the Oxygen Destroyer giving it an abundance of energy, Destroya can continue to generate more micro-oxygen, and the cycle repeats itself. this is something that I think is really quite telling, because if these two monsters ever waged an epic battle, it would be less of a battle and more like thousands of battles that, you know, make up an even greater war. And Hedorah, despite just how extremely adaptive and dangerous it is, I want everyone to remember Hedorah, just like every other living thing we know of, still needs resources. It still needs sustenance in order to continue to live and, you know, reproduce. Destroya is different. Destroya does not need anything else. The entire planet could be a cinder and it would still thrive and tower above the bones of its broken enemies. Whoa, Mittens, Cat Underlord, welcome, my friend. Mittens thinks Destroya wins. I'd love to hear why. Jarvara Productions, but I think I will go with Destroya. Oh, you said earlier both are very similar, so this is a little tricky for me, but I think I will go with Destroya. He does not need to evolve just to fly and can split into multiple kaiju and become one again. Interesting, very well put. I like how very simplistic you're being. Usually if this were, of course, everybody knows I like to monologue. It's called the Tom monologue or the Tom monologue, whatever, but I respect anyone that could just simplify their points with just a few sentences. So good job. Gamer Time's here. Welcome, my friend. Good to have you here. And of course, G-Man Stop Motion is here as well. Everyone, welcome. Feel free to comment away. Let me know more what you think. Who would win between Destroya, right here on your left, and Hedorah on your right. So, with a couple things out of the way, I think a direct battle between these two, especially in their final forms, I don't know if it would be final because, again, if their storylines continued, I'm pretty sure we would at the very least see an even bigger, more powerful form. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of, because it would be hyperbolic, it would be pure fantasy. Let's just stick to this fantastical fight, because at the very least, I could cite things that happened in the movie. So, yeah, Tomahawk. Mittens. I can't remember. Someone at the Godzilla Mad Libs night coined that phrase, or the Tom monologue, and then we just shortened it to the Tomahawk. So I take it as a compliment. I love it. I fully embraced it. My wife, for the record, thinks it's very accurate as well. So you know something's right. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so again, I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want to go 20-30 minutes on each battle. So I'm going to do my best to, learn from Jarvara Productions here and try to simplify and, let's get ready to bring this sort of fight to a close. But I will say that when I do the Kaiju Karnage battle of these two, expect way more detail, way more of a, I'd say a comprehensive breakdown on who I think would win and why. But I will just say that I do think Destroya's Oxygen Destroyer Beam, being more powerful than Showa Godzilla's Atomic Breath, could very well dehydrate Hedorah or just wreak absolute havoc. And I think, and I would still have to do more of my research here, but given Hedorah's unique physiological composition, I actually think an argument could be made that Destroya's Oxygen Destroyer Beam surprisingly would be very devastating to what Hedorah, despite, I know he's an alien and, we like to think, oh, it's an alien, therefore the Oxygen Destroyer or Oxygen Destroyer attacks would be ineffective. That's actually not true. I could go into more detail if you would like, It's kind of inspired by how, you know, the Mechagodzilla Destroy a Space Godzilla movie I made, and in the end, the oxygen destroyer hurt Space Godzilla. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, you should totally see it. I believe it's one of the best I've ever made. And some fans were kind of like, would the oxygen destroyer really work on a space monster? Yes, depends on the space monster, but yes, it would. Obviously, it didn't work on, say, King Ghidorah, you know, in Godzilla King of the Monsters. But I do think it could work on other space monsters depending on whether or not they rely on oxygen. Just because they're from space doesn't mean their bodies aren't made of oxygen. Hedorah is, which is kind of where I was going with that before another Tomahawk. But one last thing before two things before I carry on with the next fight. Destroya's micro-oxygen not only gives Destroya energy, it could also siphon energy away from other living things. It worked on Godzilla, it worked on Godzilla Jr. Finally, Destroya's laser horn, I think, is one of its most dangerous weapons, arguably the most dangerous weapon. And despite everything, listen up, guys. Hedorah, those big eyes of his, they don't heal. And I think they're just one big target. So we'll carry on in a second to the next round. I'm going to hydrate up. Ooh, G-Man, you were just making a stop motion video. What's it about? Okay, here is our next matchup. We've got Biollante taking on Legion. Legion comes from one of the best kaiju films ever made, Gamera versus Legion, or Gamera 2, Advent of Legion, Attack of Legion, has a number of names. And Biollante comes from one of the greatest kaiju films ever made, Godzilla vs. Biollante. Now, we could just spend hours talking about just how absolutely incredible these kaiju are. Maybe they just, you know, become friends, they team up, what have you, and, you know, they just look so cool. And, of course, there are a couple filmmakers already in the chat. We would all, like, we could spend hours watching the behind the scenes for each of these films. I mean, the animatronics alone, just the filmmaking brilliance behind bringing these two just absolute legends to life. Okay. Yeah, we all know how Tom loves his Godzilla vs. Biollante. You better. You all better know how much I love it, because I will always talk about it. But Gamera 2, Advent of Legion, or as they say it, Legion, is just as good of a film, if not better. An argument could be made both ways, but we're not here to talk about the quality of the films, but I'm going to do it anyway. Not really, but these two movies are incredible, and these two kaiju, there's a reason why we haven't seen either of them return, because they set the bar way too high. Anyway, on to the hypothetical fight. But before I do that, wait a minute. G-Man Stop Motion says, his stop motion's about Godzilla Final Wars taking on Heisei Godzilla versus Tokyo SOS Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That sounds ambitious. What Mechagodzilla are we talking about, G-Man? Ooh. Okay, so some of you may not be familiar with Legion. That's okay. I would say abstain. You know, you don't have to give your verdict. But if you're interested, I think I could break down both of them very briefly. So for this fight, we've got Biollante in its final form, or its abomination state. It fought Godzilla at the end of Godzilla vs. Biollante. She is a Godzilla plant hybrid, extremely dangerous. You know, I see a lot of fans think like any monster with like a heat-based energy weapon should be able to take her down. It's kind of like a flamethrower versus a plant. I mean, easy, right? Wrong. Biollante had a specific kryptonite-like weakness to Godzilla's atomic breath. But, saying all that, she still has probably the best super regeneration out of all the kaiju. Her regeneration is incredible. Godzilla blew a hole, like literally blasted the back of her head with his atomic breath, and Biollante's head was healed within seconds. So, in order to not only hurt Biollante, but negate her regeneration, you're going to need an extreme amount of firepower to get the job done. Additionally, Biollante has tentacles or tendrils that are capable of giving Godzilla a hard time. They were able to pierce his hand, his shoulder, and doing so has the unfortunate effect of possibly having her acid. See, Biollante is kind of like the xenomorphs from Alien. She bleeds acid, and if her tentacles were to, say, you know, pierce your body, they might break that acid while inside. So they kind of combine their blood, their acid blood, with yours, and it's pretty terrible to have that boiling your organs. I know, I had to be descriptive there, didn't I? The tentacles also give Biollante a massive reach, so if you were to somehow survive that and get close, she could still like just blast you with her own acid breath, and it could really do some damage. Overall, seemingly regrow any damaged tentacle that you might lob off. It's kind of like the Hydra. 3 take its place for every 1 you cut off, and she can quickly overwhelm you. Not to mention she is just massive, like 120,000 tons massive. No, wait, 200,000 tons. Wow, 80,000 more ton to what I just said. So yeah, she's like 120 meters tall and weighs like 200,000 metric tons. Okay. Speaking of stats real quick, the problem whenever it comes to pitting Toho monsters against Gamera Kaiju is that both tend to use different weight metrics. So let me just state hang on. I think someone's trying to get my attention. I'll be right back, everyone. Hold on. Just a second. Wow, that was intense. So, we have what's called a Roomba. It's like a vacuum that goes around and just, you know, does what vacuums do. But it, it swallowed one of my son's toys. And yeah, it was making loud knocking noises. Made me think somebody was at the door or something. So, okay. So, anyway, regarding official stats and the massive disparity between the two, Toho Kaiju typically way massively more than their Gamera counterparts. For the sake of these discussions, I do what's called scaling their stats. So I'm not going to give an exact figure. When I do finally do this matchup, I will provide more of a breakdown information on that. But for now, if anyone's like, Biollante wins because she just steps on Legion and shatters her because she's only like 600 tons, but Biollante weighs 200,000 tons, so it's no... Just remember, just like how filmmakers don't care about power levels, they don't care about the specifics about how incredibly one-sided these sort of situations would be. We've seen this in film. Kong from the MonsterVerse has no official stats for where he is currently that I know of, but he's still like 80 tons officially based on his Skull Island movie. And we both know he's clearly heavier than that, but filmmakers don't care, so... Alright, so anyway, Legion, in case some of you don't know, Legion is a silicone-based alien life form that crash-landed on Earth with the intention of feeding off of silicone-based products or materials to create what is called a Legion flower, which then would jettison a new seed into space and create a new Legion. It's how her species have most likely been spreading across the cosmos for eons. The problem is when the Legion flower does, activate, it wipes out a city. Legion herself is, I would say, extremely dangerous. She has wings, she can fly, but then again, those wings were taken out by air-to-air missiles, so it's very much likely something that Biollante could disable. But what makes Legion extremely dangerous comes in three different forms. One, her swarm. Most kaiju, if they don't have, say, a nuclear pulse or a means of getting like hundreds if not thousands of Legion soldiers off of them, will succumb to this within mere moments. They cannot possibly survive. Like Kong, for example, I think is one of the strongest monsters out there. He would be quickly overwhelmed by the Legion. But Biollante, with her regeneration and acidic blood, might be effective. But the question, of course, is, Legion being silicone base, what sort of effect would Biollante's acid have on Legion? For now, I'm not so sure, and I'm not convinced either way that Biollante's acid would be effective or ineffective. But let me know what you think. From what I've heard, Kong is 90,000 tons, but again, that is what I've heard. Yeah, I would figure he would be around that, but honestly, I don't think there's anything official that has come out. But if I'm mistaken, please let me know. I would like to know. But this, not to be, too technical, the example I'm using is like, even if we do have kaiju who we don't have official stats for, but let's say we do have kaiju and their official stats do place them around like the 100-ton range. The fact that they're still not getting absolutely hammered, smashed into oblivion by Godzilla means, well, the filmmakers neither care about the official stats nor power levels. So I think that's something we should, in turn, just keep in mind. I can't wait for the new Godzilla movie. Ooh, which one, G-Man? Are you excited about Godzilla -1 or the upcoming MonsterVerse film, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire? Or maybe the new MonsterVerse Godzilla TV series, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters? There's a lot to enjoy and look forward to. Okay, so back to Legion. We're almost finished before we carry on with the next round. But here's another thing to think about when it comes to Legion. Legion has what's called the electromagnetic blast that comes out of her horn, the sort of gem in her horn when it can split, and it looks really cool. When she fires this weapon, it can create kaiju-sized craters into the earth. Gamera could like literally lay in them, and it could actually act as a tomb like for him. They're that massive. The explosive force of Legion's heat ray is just insane. And I think you're looking at a beam that if it scored a direct hit on Biollante, that the game is over. Biollante will either perish or be extremely wounded to the point where she just simply put cannot continue to fight. Now, I did talk about Biollante's regeneration being a factor. It is incredible. I stand by what I said. Her healing factor is one of, if not the best, at least when it comes to live action kaiju. But here's the thing, it's finite. She requires energy in order to regenerate, and if she continues to be blasted to oblivion, she will not be able to continue to regenerate. It's part of the reason why she left for space at the end of the movie. It looked like she was literally on fire and could not continue to maintain her form, but I admit that's a little interpretational on my part. Okay. Oh yeah, Mittens. There's going to be a MonsterVerse TV series. Yeah, I just made a video about that. Monarch Legacy of Monsters, first look. Check it out. It looks like it's going to be really, I think it's going to be a massive, well, I'm hoping it's going to be a massive hit, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be extremely good. I think it's going to be, a game changer. I explain why in that video, but I will just say, I think like given how television has become one of the main sources of entertainment. I mean, you now have television productions that are comparable to Hollywood blockbusters, but unlike Hollywood films, which, you know, you go in, you watch a movie for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, it's over. You might talk about it for a few days. A TV series can stretch on for weeks, if not months, which also paves not only room for attention and positive word of mouth, but also it does something else. It could actually lead to more engaging storytelling, you know, character growth and such. Anyway, Legion does have one big fatal flaw to her extremely powerful energy blast. Her aim is terrible. See, Legion sees the world in a very, she operates on a different spectrum of light. That's how the way she sees, usually she sees light emitted by electronic like devices and such. But when she powers up her own electromagnetic beam, it blinds her. So even though Biollante is an extremely massive kaiju, there's still a big chance Legion is going to miss. Of course, her beam not only makes big explosions, it tends to shower the area with, you know, electromagnetic surges of, you know, harmful electricity that will probably zap her Biollante's tentacles anyway, So overall, Biollante's acid may not affect Legion. Legion's swarm likely won't be much of a bother to Biollante, as her acid and or her regeneration would negate the damage anyway. And Legion's beam, which I think could seal the deal here, probably will end up missing Biollante the first couple times by a mile. And in terms of when it comes to close quarters combat, Legion is pretty dang powerful. Her appendages are super sharp. They can make short work of Gamera, who, believe it or not, is pretty dang durable. We'll get back to Gamera more later. But, so you're looking at a very bloody, vicious confrontation between two of the coolest looking fearsome monsters ever. As of right now, I am going to abstain, but if you forced an answer out of me, I'd probably lean a bit more towards Legion personally, but I think it could go either way. I mean, Legion's in her chest cavity area, that's where she grows her soldiers, could be it's also arguably one of her most vulnerable areas. Biollante might be able to skewer her with her tentacles. That's where her acid probably would do the most damage. Not to mention on Legion's eyes. It's a pretty bloody, intense fight. One that I cannot wait to break down more in greater detail in time. Okay, so G-Man, you are looking forward to Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Awesome. As am I. I thought Godzilla vs. Kong was a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It's kind of become one of my family's favorite film to watch. My son is absolutely obsessed with it, which means I am a good father. And Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire looks like it's going to be fun, entertaining, and, we'll continue to expand the MonsterVerse, which is great. And Mittens mentioned that he's more excited about -1. Godzilla -1 might be the only Godzilla movie in a long time that I'm actually getting extremely excited about seeing. It sounds like it's just going to be like just a Godzilla. It's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. It really, the fact that we don't know too much about it also is very intriguing to me, but from what we have seen, it looks downright awesome. And let's see. Travara says, I am both happy and relieved that Godzilla has his Godzilla 2014 design for the show. I was a little bit worried that he'd have his G19 design or do something like what King of the Monsters did. I'm a big fan of the 2014 design as well, so it's nice to see it come back. It makes sense given the time period. To those of you who don't know, Monarch Legacy of Monsters is supposed to take place, back and forth between like the 1950s to the 2014, shortly after the first battle between Godzilla and the Mutos in the Godzilla 2014 movie. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Godzilla 2014, probably. Some people might be worried about the lack of kaiju screen time. That's something for another time. For me, as long as we have a cast of compelling characters, a great story, and they effectively utilize the kaiju scenes properly, I'm not one of those fans who gets super picky about the fact that we're not seeing Godzilla on screen every second. So, all right, let's go on to our next battle. So Legion versus Biollante, coming to Kaiju Karnage near you someday. But who are we seeing next? We have Monster X from Godzilla Final Wars taking on Gigan Rex from Godzilla vs. Gigan Rex. Gigan Rex and Monster X both rhyme, so there is that's an instant winner right there. But this is a fight that I'm honestly excited for, especially to get into more detail later on when I do another video for this. And the reason why is because, one, I just like the symmetry of it all. I just like the fact that in Godzilla Final Wars, Monster X is pretty much the kaiju in charge, and Gigan was like his helper. Here, Monster X is taking on the most powerful version of Gigan, at least in a movie. I know some in comics and mangas are way more, possibly more dangerous. But man, I think this is a crazy fight because, one, Monster X is extremely strong, agile, and just extremely durable. The guy can take Final Goji's atomic breath to the face and fight on. Final Goji overpowered him a couple times, but Monster X not only overpowered Godzilla in turn, eventually he proved to be his near, if not flat out equal, and forced a massive beam war explosion that took out what remained of Tokyo. And then, of course, Monster X could always transform into Kaiser Ghidorah. I don't know if I'm going to allow that transformation just yet, per se, or have it be a factor in this fight. We could talk about it. It also calls into question whether we're going to let Gigan Rex have his his fleet of Gigans as well, because Gigan Rex, being the leader of this Gigan clan, could also pretty much take away his Gigans, their power source, and make himself even more powerful as well. This is a this is quite a fight, because it kind of, a couple things we would have to discuss involve whether or not the Godzilla Gigan Rex fought is indeed the adult version of Godzilla Jr. from the Heisei era. I believe that's the case. There's enough evidence to support it, but Toho probably never will officially declare that to be the case. But we don't need Toho to officially declare much for the sake of these discussions, so huzzah. I just think that would be one of those, like, we need it. We need to know for sure, Toho. Please just help wipe away any shred of doubt we might have. But I think it's pretty safe to say it is adult Godzilla Jr. And just one of Gigan Rex's minor Gigan stooges you gotta understand, these Gigans were pretty strong. I mean, the air being created just by these Gigans, like slapping their claws together, creating shockwaves, were like splitting skyscrapers like apart. So Gigans were indirectly, like Dragon Ball style, just annihilating buildings without, touching them. But their blades, just literally, they harmlessly bounced off of Godzilla Jr.'s skin, which makes him extremely durable. Gigan Rex, however, was giving him one heck of a fight. And you can almost say he was, the fact that Godzilla Jr. had to resort to using what, I don't know its official name, but this version of Godzilla can enter, it's kind of like what would happen if his father was able to control his meltdown state. Instead of melting down, he was able to receive the full benefits of that power-up. That's what Junior was able to do. He was incredibly strong, far more powerful than his father, and Gigan Rex was able to stalemate him. So I think overall, if we allow Monster X to have the potential of turning into Kaiser Ghidorah, Gigan Rex in turn has access to his Gigan army and could very well use them to enhance his power overall, and possibly win by using that massive, Godzilla vs. Gigan Rex ended in an insanely cool beam war at the end, and Gigan Rex was able to come close to stalemating Godzilla Jr.'s immense power at the time. Oh man. So Javara's saying, personally, I think Gigan Rex will win. He can fly, has better long-range weapons, and has longer range in close combat due to his longer armor and claws. I also wish SH Monster Arts made Gemstone Godzilla and Gigan Rex. If only, absolutely. Especially the last part. I would love to have a Gigan Rex and the Gemstone Godzilla Adult Jr. would be a welcomed addition to my collection, as I'm sure it would be for yours as well. But yeah, I think I agree too. Ultimately, I'm definitely leaning towards Gigan Rex here. If Monster X were to transform into Kaiser Ghidorah, it would become a kind of a different fight, kind of a race against who gets to hit the other one first, or more accurately, who's going to bombard the other first. Because if Kaiser Ghidorah bombarded Gigan Rex first, there's not much Gigan Rex can do. And if Gigan Rex gets that massive, Lovecraftian purple beam of doom off, well, Monster X, Kaiser Ghidorah, they're pretty much in for a world of pain at that point. Oh, Mittens, if you haven't seen it yet, you can always search on YouTube Godzilla versus Gigan Rex. It's this 10-minute movie that's pretty awesome. It's the name of the Godzilla that was in that movie, who fought Gigan Rex, that's who you see over here on your right, my left, this guy right here. It's a pretty good movie. I liked it. Let me know what you think if you see it. All right, moving on. Let's see who's next. Okay, this is going to be pretty difficult. I don't want to. Already, I could feel my voice beginning to tire. But this fight is intense. We've got Grand King Ghidorah from Rebirth of Mothra 3 fighting Space Godzilla. This is really one of those things where the battlefield can make or break who wins this. Because if they're fighting in Fukuoka, then Space Godzilla might be able to create like a Fukuoka tower, repurpose it into his own power source, his own tower of power, and use it to continuously replenish his energy, while Grand King Ghidorah in a city could just go around and just continue. He has this strange power where he can literally just kind of fly around and demolecularize like kids and just take them and transport them to this dome where it's gonna, well, I'll spare you the details, but it's how he is responsible for, I guess, killing the dinosaurs. He breaks them down into fossil fuels or energy, and that's how Grand King Ghidorah absorbs energy and becomes stronger over time. But again, the mythology of the Rebirth of Mothra series is a little strange. The backstory, anyway, we hear mixed reports of Ghidorah killing the dinosaurs, or it was Grand King Ghidorah that did it. It's kind of up in the air, but it's not important for this fight. Oh, good. Mittens, you've seen it. You just didn't know that Godzilla had a name. Ah, gotcha. Guys, you gotta help me out with this one. Who do you think wins, Space Godzilla or Grand King Ghidorah? This is a tough one. Because they both have powers and abilities that, while would be highly effective against most enemies, most combatants, they also have abilities that offset the other. Space Godzilla's Corona Beam is a devastating projectile, but Grand King Ghidorah has a shield, a barrier. Grand King Ghidorah's gravity beams are extremely powerful. I mean, they made short work of Rainbow Mothra, one of the most powerful kaiju around. Yet Space Godzilla is not only insanely durable, he too has a force field. Not to mention there's a chance he might just absorb Grand Ghidorah's energy beams. What does Ghidorah do to kids, Tom? He eats them, Mittens. He eats them. Grand King Ghidorah is like the Freddy Krueger of the kaiju universe, guys. He's a truly terrible evil monster. I mean, Ghidorahs usually are evil, but Grand King Ghidorah is arguably the worst. Space Godzilla, being a Godzilla clone, does have regeneration. He can heal injuries, not to his crystals per se, but if Grand Ghidorah were to by any chance injure him, Space Godzilla could regenerate. At the same time, Grand King Ghidorah might be able to turn himself into a meteor energy sphere and blast away to retreat. He could put more energy into his gravity beams to, put Space Godzilla down for the 10 count. It's really one of those battles that Okay, side note, might actually not look epic immediately because Space Godzilla, you know, you got like a 120 meter tall evil Space Godzilla clone. Grand King Ghidorah, despite being one of the most powerful Ghidorahs, is 60 meters tall. He's kind of short compared to most Ghidorahs. He's kind of comparable to GMK Ghidorah in terms of size. But yeah, don't let that fool you. Grand Ghidorah is extremely powerful, and this is a fight that I would have to take more time, I think, analyzing, because there's a lot going on here that could very well tip the scales in either's favor. It's a pretty close fight, to be fair. Although, technically speaking, Grand Ghidorah's barrier doesn't seem to work when he's fired upon at close range. The Elias Mothra's fairies were able to do that. Yeah, those the Mothra's fairies in the trilogy have pretty crazy firepower and powers, to their credit. My oh my. So there's a chance anyway that if Space Godzilla and Grand King Ghidorah were to fight each other up close and personal, Space Godzilla might be able to actually hurt him up close with his Corona beams, but I don't know if the Corona beam, even the Corona beam, is strong enough to, you know, really do a number on Grand King Ghidorah. It's hard to say, but this is a huge battle between two final bosses. This is something that I feel like would be, it's very similar. It's quite up there with Destroya versus Hedorah. You got two apocalyptic monsters going head to head. No planet they fight on is safe, but I guess you can make an argument that Grand King Ghidorah will likely win a few battles if he's fighting Space Godzilla, maybe like nowhere near a city. Because again, Space Godzilla needs a power source. I've read somewhere, some of you, I don't know who, some of you, I think it was for the Heisei Godzilla versus Final Wars Godzilla Kaiju Karnage, someone wrote that because Heisei Godzilla fought Space Godzilla, or Space Godzilla has infinite energy, therefore Heisei Godzilla would win or something. I'm sorry, if whoever it is, if you could just make, you know, feel free. I don't want to misrepresent your argument here, but the main thing that I'm touching upon here is Space Godzilla does not have infinite energy. I've heard some people cite sources or some like guidebooks claiming as such, but Space Godzilla does not have infinite energy. That's what his crystal spires are for. They're supposed to gather energy, and then he in turn absorbs it. If he had infinite energy, he would have no need for the crystals. This is something that is extremely important to understand when it comes to Space Godzilla. He does not have infinite energy. He has access to nigh infinite energy. You know, the cosmic powers of the universe, Space Godzilla could very well like slowly leech off of over an eternity. But it is important to understand that. Neither of these kaiju have infinite energy. I can't think of a single monster or kaiju that does have infinite energy. It's definitely something something I'm willing to tomahawk about anytime. Bring it. If you disagree, go ahead, leave a comment. I will read it. I will do my best to steelman you so you understand, you know, so we're on the same page. But I have spoken. I kid. So some of you think Space Godzilla probably wins, but you know what? I don't know for sure. This is another fight that I will have to abstain for now. I will think about more when its respective Kaiju Karnage episode draws nearer. Next, we have another powerhouse matchup. We have Death Ghidorah, or Death Ghidorah, as he's actually I think officially called, or should be called, taking on the MonsterVerse's own Mechagodzilla. Oh boy. Oh boy. So let me start this by saying Death Ghidorah in all likelihood is more powerful or more dangerous than Grand King Ghidorah. That might be a little bit difficult because Death Ghidorah was like the main villain for the first Mothra movie, and you know, it's kind of like, it's similar to Dragon Ball sagas. The more powerful the heroes get, obviously the first villains they fought would be like child's play later on, right? But Death Ghidorah, we never saw him at his full power. And in a video, I would provide more comprehensive breakdown showing, and some translations of source material that show that when Death Ghidorah invaded the Earth millions of years ago, he fought an army of full-grown Mothras, some of which looked like they were Mothra Leos. And not only did this battle last for days, if not weeks, Death Ghidorah reached a point where he was so powerful he could control the forces of the Earth, the geothermal energies of the planet, making all the volcanoes on the planet erupt at the same time. So understand, Death Ghidorah is maybe not a planet buster per se, but he definitely can affect an entire planet and cause devastation that very few kaiju can come close to competing to. He's also extremely durable. He's a tank. He's a kaiju equivalent of a tank. He will likely wear off, shrug off most attacks, both physical and energy in nature. Mothra Leo, who's basically like the Dragon Ball Z of the kaiju world, was unleashing beam energy after beam energy, and only Mothra Leo's most powerful energy attack succeeded in doing was, well, knocking Death Ghidorah out long enough so Leo could seal him. That's right, Death Ghidorah was never killed. He was just beaten into submission. There's a chance Death Ghidorah could, return again. Clearly, he's making a return for this fight. Alright, so Death Ghidorah, extremely powerful. I'm not saying he's starting off at full, he's causing every volcano on the planet to erupt level, but that's his potential. What about Mechagodzilla? An interesting discussion, one that I think I'll entertain in a future video, would be, could MonsterVerse Godzilla beat Mechagodzilla? You might be wondering, wait a minute, didn't we see them fight, and wasn't Mechagodzilla completely dominating Godzilla? Yeah, but Godzilla was technically weaker. He had just fought Kong and blasted a hole into the center of the Earth. He was clearly not at full strength. So at full power, if MonsterVerse Godzilla fought MonsterVerse Mechagodzilla, could Godzilla win? You guys let me know what you think. I kind of think Godzilla would have a better shot. However, in the novel, it kind of implies that Mechagodzilla would win anyway, because Mechagodzilla has the same energy power level as Godzilla. They're both essentially powered by hollow earth energy, which is something like generating around 5 to 600 gigawatts of energy, which is insane. You could literally power entire countries with that kind of energy, or blast a hole into the center of the earth. So Mechagodzilla wields considerable power. He's strong enough to literally throw Godzilla's 99,000 ton body around Hong Kong, just absolutely trashed him. So we know Mechagodzilla is both powerful, has, his proton scream is extremely powerful, and he's extremely strong. What about durability? Well, I think he's durable enough to weather most of Death Ghidorah's attacks, but Death Ghidorah does have what's called like a pyre road, where his flame breath is so intense it literally splits the earth asunder while simultaneously transforming the earth's soil into lava. It's that hot, it's that powerful, and that could very well wreak havoc on Mechagodzilla if the Apex Titan is not too careful. Both also pack quite the wallop, an electrifying punch. Death Ghidorah's can release energy pulses the moment an opponent gets too close. Mechagodzilla, of course, can zap you. He was doing that to Godzilla. And also, if you don't know, there's a couple points where, if you watch closely, as Mechagodzilla was slamming Godzilla into buildings and electrocuting him, if you look close, like you could see the electricity zapping from like within Godzilla's eyes. So Mechagodzilla was frying Godzilla throughout their final fight. It's pretty painful and great little attention to detail. So as for who I think would win this fight, I'm kind of leaning towards Mechagodzilla, to be honest. I think he's durable and strong enough to weather Death Ghidorah's attacks, because most of them are not really that noteworthy aside from the Pyre Road. But other than that, I think Mechagodzilla could just absolutely hammer Death Ghidorah into submission long before Death Ghidorah ever achieves his ultimate like power. He regains his glory days of being like a true apocalyptic threat. Now, if Death Ghidorah was at that level, then there's really not much Mechagodzilla could really do. Although, again, considering the fact that Mechagodzilla, his power level, his proton scream is essentially powered by the same energy that made Godzilla being able to drill into the center of the earth possible, I think despite how durable Death Ghidorah is, he's not that durable. So I'd say Mechagodzilla would win this fight, but if you disagree, whatever, let me know. Alright everyone, after this we have 2 more battles. I admit the next one will likely be short and sweet. And the very last fight we will go over is actually the next Kaiju Karnage episode that I'm currently working on. I'm still through the script writing, fact checking, just research mode phase of, my projects. Okay, so let's get to it. Our next fight involves the Cloverfield monster, namely the one from the first movie Cloverfield, not the giant hulking 30,000 foot Clover mommy from at the end of Cloverfield Paradox. It's just the baby Cloverfield monster for now. Taking on the Karathan from the DC Extended Universe movie Aquaman. You can even see Aquaman chilling right there on the Karathan's head. This is I think, a pretty exciting fight. I kind of go back and forth on this one. Mainly due to the fact that I think both are, even though we just went from talking about, Godzilla, Gamera, Kaiju, back and forth. Now we're talking about 2 completely unrelated Kaiju to either of those franchises, so this should be fun. It should be, right? Claymation Gloves, welcome, man. Welcome back. Glad to have you. So I'm expecting several of you in the chat kind of like shrugging. It's one of those things where I think even viewers, people watching this now or in the future, probably won't feel too invested in this fight, which is why I'm not going to focus too much on it. But I can assure you, I think it would be exciting to see these two go up against each other. But long story short, even though Cloverfield is kind of like a found footage film, so it's kind of hard to really accurately gauge feats, here's what we know. The Cloverfield monster, or Clover for short, is strong enough to, withstand most conventional weapons. He's strong enough to push down massive skyscrapers. He can split the Brooklyn Bridge in half with his tail. He's aquatic. He has parasitic monsters, just jumping off of his body. And the guy can, I guess it's debatable. There's some proof that he survived, like this getting hit by a mother of all bombs or a Moab at the end of his movie. But I think that is a pretty good way of indicating the limits to his durability. And then on the other hand, we have the Kraken, which didn't seem to show much of a weakness, to be honest. I mean, this creature, when we met it, was voiced by Mary Poppins herself, and it was living, just chilling in the center of the earth. It's not like the Hollow Earth from the Monsterverse, mind you, but that would make a great crossover. The Kraken is highly intelligent, sentient, years of experience, and it was fast and strong enough to make short work of Aquaman. Likely would have killed him if he didn't, prove that he was the Atlan, some king's successor. I forget the name of the guy, but Aquaman's the true king of Atlantis, the Seven Seas, etc. Which means the Kraken would join him and obey his commands. But emphasis on the center of the earth, because the Kraken was able to later tunnel from the center of the earth to the bottom of the ocean. So in the past, I mentioned that Heisei Godzilla is extremely durable because he could swim through the mantle of the earth. Well, the Kraken has that durability down and then some. She could survive the insane pressures of the center of the earth, the crazy high temperatures, all while fending off Atlantean plasma energy, making it, just tearing apart the Atlantis' armies. You're looking at quite possibly the strongest creature from the DC Extended Universe films. Could very well be up there with Superman, but honestly, I think this is a great fight. It probably would be more intense if it were the Cloverfield monster from the end of Paradox, because that thing is like so big it makes even Godzilla Earth look tiny. And the Kraken, while, don't let the Aquaman chilling on her head there fool you, she's actually supposed to be way bigger, like one of the biggest kaiju around. But I think given her durability and the fact that she's just incredibly strong and extremely intelligent, I think she would win this fight. But yeah, I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I just think it's an interesting matchup. Okay, we're now going to enter the final battle of this Kaiju Fight Club. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It's been great. This is going to be the next episode of Kaiju Karnage as well, so I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm still researching it, but you guys in the chat are in a unique position where you can actually help me perhaps come to a decision on this. So we have Monsterverse Kong taking on Heisei Gamera. This would be a great fight. I would love it, and I'm super pumped to go more into detail on this one. For all intents and purposes, again, Both monsters, their stats are scaled, so none of that Kong just kicks Gamera and sends him flying into the moon kind of nonsense. Kong has his battle axe, and this is Gamera, you know, from Gamera 3, albeit he hasn't lost his arm. So both monsters, both titans are at their most powerful. Oh, Javara, the stream will continue a little bit longer after this battle. Don't worry. I still, you know, there's still some Q&A. I might want to talk about more, a couple things, but yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit. So if you have any questions or anything, just hit me up. Let me know what you're thinking. Oh man, you were also thinking about making this a stop motion fight using that new SH Monster Arts Gamera 1999 figure? Awesome. Yeah, this would make a great fight. It's honestly one of those battles that I have gone back and forth with, and I still don't have a verdict. I think Gamera is immensely strong, physically one of the strongest monsters, believe it or not, but so is Kong, and unlike Gamera, Kong is extremely agile, and I would say is a far more efficient fighter. Gamera is a literal giant turtle, so Kong is going to literally run circles around him. But man, Kong can't afford to get hit, not even once, by Gamera's fireballs. So let me take a moment and debunk a couple fan kaiju myths when it comes to Gamera Kaiju. Gamera Kaiju, I'm not going to say are neither weaker nor stronger than their Godzilla counterparts. It varies wildly depending on which kaiju we're talking about. So it's kind of similar to the Final Wars Godzilla Kaiju cast. I don't think they're super powerful, but I also don't think they're incredibly weak either. But I will say Gamera Kaiju are generally underrated when it comes to these fights. And that's because, yes, conventional weapons do affect Gamera Kaiju generally more than they would affect their Godzilla counterparts. However, it's important to note that no matter when we do see humans firing upon Gamera, they're not actually hurting him. At least by the time Gamera 3 rolls around, they might successfully say, temporarily knock out his jet propulsion, like they did with the Patriot missiles when Gamera and Iris were having their dogfight in the air. But Gamera Kaiju, specifically Gamera, he's way stronger, more powerful than a lot of Godzilla fans would probably ever give him credit for. Let's do a couple comparisons, shall we? So remember Legion, the Legion flower I talked about like half an hour ago? The Legion flower not only blew up and completely annihilated Sendai, a city in Japan, it also, Gamera was at ground zero of that. And even though I think Gamera either was dead or way incapacitated, I gotta just point out something, the obvious. Gamera's body wasn't blown to smithereens. His body actually was able to withstand the huge, immense, I would just say, not only the force, the insane explosive power of the Legion Flower event, but also the heat. Okay, so Gamera's body, he can at least withstand a city-busting attack. Okay, why am I bringing this up? Because by the time Gamera 3 rolls around, Gamera, a single fireball blast to his own arm is enough to he could blow off his own limb. That's how insanely powerful Gamera's fireballs are. So, I do not think for a second Kong wants to risk getting hit by a single fireball. Kong, with his battle axe, might be able to use it to block a fireball, which I think would happen. He's agile and fast enough to avoid, and of course, if they're fighting in the city, then he'll use the skyscrapers as cover, of course. But right now, the main thing that I'm conveying here is Gamera has the attacks, the firepower needed to end this battle. All he needs is at least one direct hit, but two should seal the deal. Gamera also has flight capabilities, so if Kong has him on the ropes, Gamera can always tuck into a shell and spin around extremely fast, which could be pretty devastating to Kong if he were to ram into Kong like he did against Iris or Legion, and Kong might not like the aftermath of that. So Gamera has, despite being having limited mobility and being very slow on land, could suddenly become a fast, hard-hitting threat by going into his flying form. But Gamera usually, since we take character, behavior, all of that into account, Gamera very much will likely still, at the end, return to wanting to engage and fight Kong in close quarters. Not before just bombarding the area with fireballs, of course. All right, I'm gonna take a moment. Let's read what we got. Claymation says the verdict is Gamera, period. He can and will burn him, as in Kong. Also know Gamera can fly at supersonic speeds. Okay. Dravara says this is close, but I think Kong wins if he has his axe. This is a very good point. Kong not only has advantages in close range combat, even without the axe. I mean, Kong was able to temporarily disorient Godzilla, Monsterverse Godzilla, with his hits. I'm pretty sure he's strong enough to at least do more than just daze Gamera with his punches. But if you put the battle axe into it, well, into Kong's hands, yeah, Kong is definitely drawing green blood in this fight. But here's the thing, Gamera can take it. Gamera has insane damage soak. He kind of reminds me of Jason Voorhees. No matter how many times you make this guy bleed, somehow he's able to still not only function, but he could fight and somehow manages to win the day and overcome great odds. So what I'm saying is Kong is gonna have to rapidly just bury that axe into Gamera until Gamera stops breathing. That's literally the only way Kong is gonna be able to win probably this fight overall. Because even if Kong, let's say, takes the battle axe and just caves in Gamera's chest, Gamera had Iris's spear go through his chest and out the back of his shell, and he still managed to keep fighting. Kong has his work cut out for him. Gamera, I've already argued, is way more durable than people give him credit for, but his damage soak, what he might lack in a healing factor, he makes up for by the fact that this guy, through true grit, can just power on through just about any sort of what should have been fatally ending wounds. Gamera can still persevere. It's a pretty dang good fight. Now let's see what else others are saying. If we are talking about both at their strongest, then no, Gamera will probably punch Kong, and that's it. Assuming, of course, Kong doesn't just, dodge. I think Kong is more than fast enough to avoid Gamera landing a hit or two, but I do admit Gamera is pretty dang strong. The Legion Flower, for example, which is like 20 times Legion's mass, Gamera was able to pull that down, tug it, uproot it from the earth with just one hand. And then when you look at the size of Gamera's claws and factor in the fact that the guy was able to literally bury his claws deep into Iris's gut, just Kong does not want Gamera to score a direct hit. So Kong not only can't afford to get hit by Gamera's fireballs, he can't afford to get hit by Gamera's claws. Javara points out Kong can block Gamera's long-range attacks with his axe, and possibly the axe can absorb the energy of the attacks. Okay, let's talk about that. So we know Kong's axe draws energy not only from the hollow earth, but it can also absorb Godzilla's atomic breath, which are, long story short, kind of one and the same. But it's specifically stated in the movie that Kong's axe was drawing radiation from the hollow earth energy, suggesting that it can do more than just absorb Godzilla's atomic breath. It might also be able to absorb other energy attacks. Keep in mind, though, this is still one of those, an argument can be made for either side on this. And honestly, I'm not going to take a definitive stance just yet. More research is being conducted on this issue alone. So I think you can make the case it's possible, but the reason why this is important is because Kong's axe is way more powerful if it is full of energy. With it, Kong was able to temporarily knock Godzilla out. He was able to actually wound Godzilla. And of course, later on, Kong's axe, before it was charged up by Godzilla in the final battle, could only create sparks when it was hitting Mechagodzilla. After being charged up, it was able to hack off Mechagodzilla's limbs, literally decapitate him with it. So the axe is far more formidable if it's charged up with energy. However, remember, Gamera will absorb fire, especially from his own fireballs, or even Iris's fireballs, which Iris got by siphoning Gamera's DNA anyway. It's literally no different than Gamera's own fireballs. So if Kong is hitting Gamera with a battle axe that is charged up by Gamera's fireballs, yeah, sure, it's gonna do damage, but in turn, it's gonna give Gamera more energy. So the other issue here is that means Kong is a lot closer and will be a much easier target. So like I mentioned before, Gamera, he could soak up the damage, and if Kong is hacking away at him, again, all Gamera needs is just 1 or 2 fireballs to call this a win. But let's see what others are saying. Claymation gloves. I don't feel like this one is close. It would be like Godzilla vs. Kong, except Gamera wouldn't hold back. Mitten says, I like Turtle. Claymation disagrees with Jarva, saying it can absorb Godzilla's breath, not other attacks. Trust me, he couldn't. That X can only absorb Godzilla's attacks, not any others. Again, this could be very well the case, but it's also something that I feel like it's really hard to prove and disprove. It's kind of like how I used to argue that Space Godzilla, for example, can absorb other energy attacks. We see him absorbing the attacks from Megara's energy beams, and also it's mentioned that Space Godzilla was absorbing Godzilla's energy. But what would happen if Space Godzilla fought Ultraman or Gamera or Mothra Leo? Could Space Godzilla absorb their energy attacks? Well, it kind of gets into very tricky waters of, again, like I mentioned before, it could be argued either way. Right now, if you were to ask me, make a decision, Tom, I'd probably agree with Claymation here overall and just say, I think it's inconclusive to believe that the battle axe could be used to absorb the energy from Gamera's fireballs. However, I think it's more than durable enough to withstand Gamera's fireballs, so it could still successfully prevent the fireballs from, making a direct hit. But the explosive power of the fireballs and the fact that they can set several city blocks aflame immediately still would be pretty bad for Kong. So, if I had to make a choice currently, I'd probably say that the Battle Axe can't absorb Gamera's fireballs, but it could still be used to deflect them. Let's see. Oh yeah, so Claymation thinks that, is pretty sure that Kong is just going to be burned, deep fried. Most likely. Mittens thinks I made a good Dragon Ball Z reference. Thank you. Or a Dragon Ball Z abridged referenced. I'm assuming that's what you meant by DBZA, Mittens. If Kong has the strength to deeply stab Godzilla's leg, then Kong can cut Gamera apart. Sure. Yeah. I'm not questioning whether or not Kong has the strength to injure Gamera, especially with his axe. He very well could win this fight with a few well-placed axe, stabs, chops here and there. It's just kind of one of those things where Kong has to do that in quick succession without getting his head blown off by Gamera's fireballs or getting absolutely gored by Gamera's claws. And also, Gamera has the damage soak to take quite a number of battle axe strikes before it's all over. So, yeah. What would make and as I mentioned earlier, Gamera is far more durable than most people give him credit for. Another example to Gamera's durability is that, sure, when we first met Gamera in Guardian of the Universe, Gauss's sonic beams were able to effortlessly just, split his skin apart and make him bleed pretty seriously, too. I think Gauss was able to hit some veins or arteries during that time. But by the time Gamera 3 rolls around, Hyper Gauss's sonic beams, which a quick little blast was able to literally cut a massive skyscraper in half, was quite literally bouncing off Gamera's hand. And I know some fans might think that Gamera was bleeding during the scene. There's no evidence whatsoever that the Hyper Gauss wounded Gamera at all. I could eventually show photos or provide evidence to back up what I'm saying here, but Gamera is a pretty lean, mean tank of a monster. He's pretty powerful. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. So Jarvara is saying, honestly, Gamera's fireballs won't do a lot. Kong in Skull Island was able to take fire well and only went down because of the lack of oxygen. Well, the point is that Gamera's fireballs would do a lot. They would, again, prove quite devastating. Hence my Gamera's, his body withstood a city-busting attack at Ground Zero. The Legion Flower explosion that I mentioned, which I think we can all agree is more powerful, more dangerous than anything Kong could, do. And Gamera's body withstood it. And yet Gamera's fireball was able to blast off his own right hand. So I think the fireballs are pretty dangerous. Not to mention a couple shots were enough to make fully grown Gauss explode, and Gausses are capable of surviving atmospheric re-entry, with temperatures that rival that of a lava. So I don't think Kong has ever, a minor graze from Godzilla's atomic beam really burned his back and made him yelp in pain. A full-on hit from Gamera's fireballs, not to mention a salvo, pretty much makes short work of our our dear eighth wonder of the world. But let's see what else we got. Well, yeah, here's the problem. Gamera's fire is not the same as the Skull Island fire at all. It is hotter than the surface of the sun, stated by Death Battle. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to, Claymation, I'm not trying to, like, throw Death Battle under the bus here, but as far as sources go, you're going to have to do more than that if you want. I'm not disagreeing, but you kind of need to cite. What did Death Battle cite? Do you remember? I'm assuming this is from their Godzilla Gamera video they did a couple years back. Like, how did they arrive at that calculation? I can't remember. I don't know. I don't think Gamera's fireballs need to be as hot as the surface of the sun to blow Kong to smithereens anyway, but I'm just curious. Let's see. So Kong will probably just get enraged and stab him more, which will probably leave deep cuts. Sure. And at that point, it's a race against time, right? Who's going to be able to hurt who? And this is why I think this is one heck of a close, insane fight. Mitten says he's on Team Turtle, honestly. You know, I'm definitely leaning towards Gamera, but there are a couple other things that could very well lead to Kong's victory. Because, just like how I think during the battle in Sendai, or what was it? Shibuya. Yeah, during Shibuya where Gamera was fighting those Hyper Gauss, the Hyper Gauss were able to maneuver around and dodge some of his fireballs. And that's the thing. Kong is just as agile. I think with his high intelligence, his fighting skills, his, formidable strength, he's going to close the distance quickly. I think he can avoid the first initial salvo of Gamera's fireballs, and Gamera does prefer, again, to deal in close quarters combat. He does have the fireballs, and he usually does use them, but the moment he unleashes the first volley, he typically resorts to other fighting tactics. This is where Kong will have a huge advantage. Now, I do think that doesn't mean Gamera, if, pushed into a corner and he's got this giant ape that's just goring him with an axe, Gamera needs to act quickly. He most certainly will use a fireball, but really that's where this fight becomes flip a coin. Kong is hacking away, probably has taken off an arm or two, or maybe he's, put in he's inflicted deep cuts. Gamera is bleeding profusely. But Gamera's also gotten a couple shots in. Kong is wounded, and now Gamera's mouth is just burning with his fire, and he's getting ready to unleash his fireballs at point blank. At this point, it's a race, and I'm leaning towards Gamera here because I don't think Kong can put Gamera down faster than it would take Gamera to simply fire 2-3 fireballs at point blank, and each one is more than enough to win the day. So let's see what else we got. He was hit by Godzilla's atomic breath that can probably destroy a planet if it was used right, and Kong took that. Okay, fair enough, Javara, but here's the thing about using... Let's say Godzilla's atomic breath was able to blast a hole into the center of the Earth, but he did that by supercharging. His entire body had to glow. So I think using that as a reference, we can point out that because his entire body wasn't glowing when Kong took that hit, it's safe to say that the atomic breath gray shot Kong survived was nowhere near comparable to Godzilla blasting a hole into the center of the Earth. Therefore, I don't think we can say Kong is durable enough to withstand a planet-destroying atomic beam shot with that comparison. I will also point out that I highly doubt if Godzilla charged up his hollow earth blasting atomic breath and hit Kong, Kong would be done. He's gone. There's no getting back from that. Claymation, yeah, it's Team Turtle. It's just G versus K, except equal intelligence, and Gamera won't hold back like Godzilla did, so Axe will cut, but if he gets close, he's not dodging a fireball. Yeah, Claymation, Gloves, and I appear to be pretty much on the same page here. What else we got? Gray Shot! Good to see you, my friend. The fireballs are made of plasma, and I think they, as in Death Battle, just took the temperature of the sun for reference. Well, the thing is, fire is basically plasma anyway, so, you know, we wouldn't look at fire at any point in a kaiju film and go, that fire there, that's plasma there, that's the surface of the sun. I mean, even some Godzillas have plasma for their, like, ionized plasma as their atomic breath. I wouldn't say every Godzilla has, like, sun temperatures, but thank you for, you know, pointing that out. That could very well be the case there. And Jarvara points out, doesn't Death Battle get their info wrong? That's what I hear sometimes. The reason why that could be the case is because Death Battle is not me. I'm never wrong. I always get my facts straight. So yes, there's a chance that Death Battle is, you know, in the wrong on this one. But again, I don't know for sure. I'm just being a bit, you know, hyperbolic here. Let's see what else we got. No, Death Battle don't really get their stuff wrong. Maybe with older vids though, I don't know. Death Battle, in all seriousness, they do their homework, they do their research. Again, I don't want people to think I'm bashing the heck out of them. Not that they would care. They do extensive research and breakdowns. I don't always agree with them. Sometimes I think they tend to accept feats, or less about feats and more about what I would call expositional claims, as in these are claims that are mentioned in the narrative, but they are unsupported by direct empirical feats upon which we can verify and, well, in turn quantify. So they're kind of like versus battles wiki. They tend to get a bit way hyperbolic. They might get way tangled up in certain specifics when in fact, if you point at like certain, I'm not going to give it, maybe I should give a direct comparison here, but I do think they tend to get wrapped up in hyperbole as opposed to just, you know, let's look at what we're seeing on screen and go from there, as opposed to trying to rely a bit too much on maybe a guidebook that was written by an intern and is not really, you know, supported by the empirical evidence that we see on screen. I could go into more of my criterion of power, my specific methodology. That's what I base these videos on, this analysis. That's where I'm coming from. It would not be my attempt to, you know, change your minds. Everybody here, I mean, we're talking about fictional characters. You all can do what you want. You can all think what you want. It's totally cool. It's reasonable, understandable. But I do have my own sort of method as well, and I'm, you know, I could go into it when this is over if you would like, but Cloverfield's, no wait, Gray Shot, Cloverfield. Gray Shot says, giving this to Gamera, equal intelligence, but Gamera's insane endurance makes me think he'll have the time to get a hit, and he just needs one hit. All right. I think I agree largely with the chat's consensus. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Greyshot says, very true. Tom is the first to admit a mistake. He just never makes any. True! You know what? Congratulations, Greyshot. You're promoted. I don't know to what, but you know what? You're promoted. Good job. Cooper, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. It's been a long time. You know, I think we could say this fight is pretty much near its conclusion. So let's think about... Oh, I'm going to move me over here. There I go. All right. While I have some of you here, I'm pleased to announce that Kaijutopia, that's the YouTube channel you're on right now, we started a membership. So if you're interested in becoming a member, please consider starting up a membership with us. There are different tiers, different brackets, but there's also many different perks to becoming a member. Some of the biggest, I'm going to start with some of the perks that I'm excited about that I think some of you would like. One perk in particular I will address for any of the stop motion artists, my fellow stop motion kaiju animators in the house. But first, one perk involves having exclusive access, early access to some videos. You receive producer's credit, so you could see your names in the credits at the end of each movie. In turn, if you are a filmmaker, you could use that producer's credit. You can always cite it. Maybe you're applying for a job to be a VFX artist, a filmmaker for a studio or a company. You could use this as a reference. But one thing that I'm excited about for this membership opportunity for stop motion artist fans, especially, is that regardless of whatever level, I'm not going to be picky. You could go with the cheapest for only $3.99 option a month. You will have direct access to my green screen stop motion footage. I can't exactly, for legal reasons, let you use some of the VFX that I have. Of course, these are assets that I do not own the rights to, but I have a library of Godzilla green screen footage, and I'd be more than happy to hook you up, provide you direct access to what I've done. That way we can work together, we can collaborate on future projects. I can help you with, let's say you're working on your green screen, skills. I can help polish that up. You can also receive some footage that is not green screen based. I could take care of that for you, and then you could just drag and drop Godzilla into your project and run wild. So lots of things to think about. I am just putting that out there. Obviously, guys, you do not have to join the memberships. My goal, as always, is to make projects that everyone can see and enjoy. If you, by becoming a member, you're just telling me that you want to continue to support what I do, and I'm very thankful for it. But yeah, just throwing that out there. Let's see. Jarvara is heading out. Thank you, my friend, for being here. I think you were the first one today, so thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you being here. And Claymation's gonna head out too. His room is hot as hell. Hey, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being here as well. I thank you for your feedback too. You and Jarvara definitely gave some pretty good, I'd say a lot for me to think about when I start working on these videos. So thanks a lot. We're still gonna be, let's see. Let's give it like 10-15 minutes. I will keep the stream running. If you guys have any questions, anything you would like to talk about, now is the time. I am going to kind of show you guys what I've been working on. I've been doing a lot of VFX for my current Godzilla vs. Batman project. Things are heating up there. But I'm going to share you some VFX stuff that I've been working on. So just a second. So right now there's no sound, right? This is kind of what we saw from the previous video. Right here you could see Batman just chilling on top of the skyscraper. Let me get rid of the social media icons here. And of course, myself too. So, by the way, if you haven't already, consider following me on Instagram and Twitter. I'd like to share my photography, my art. They are pretty much screen grabs from these video projects. Okay, so here we see Godzilla in the rain, looking down at Batman, and Batman being all like, I'm not afraid of you. He's just standing up to Godzilla, and this is one of my favorite moments in the movie. If you look very closely, you can even see Batman's cape moving in the wind. It's just one of those attention to details that I'm just really picky about, that I just enjoy. It's what makes this fun. And when we last saw Godzilla taking on Batman, we see the two facing off on top of the rooftop. The rain is coming down hard. Godzilla charges up his atomic breath, but Batman, with a grappling hook, leaves and manages to, well, get to safety. You know, he's not turned into a deep-fried bat. I don't know. But here is what happens next. Okay, so after that, and so far again, I'm still working on the VFX, so we're nearing an end on the VFX. Should be finished within the next week or two, kind of shooting for a September 16th release, which is a little less than a month away, but that's on Batman Day. But again, members might be able to get to see this maybe a full week or two before anyone else. But here we see Godzilla. He's blasting away at the rooftop. It's gone. But then Batman flies past him in the Batwing. Let's take a look at that again, because when we last saw Batman, he, fired his grappling hook up into the sky. We don't see what he fired his grappling hook to, and I thought it would be really cool that he used it, and you can see him right there, slowly being reeled into his the Batwing. And notice the rain on him in the Batwing as well. More attention to detail that I just absolutely enjoy. Oh wait, real quick. Cooper said my copy of the new Kyoto Gamma arrived yesterday. That's so cool. The box art looks incredible and the figure is really good. Some limitations, but overall it's a pretty good figure. 4.7 stars out of 5. Awesome. Yeah, I'm expecting mine to come any day now. Hoping it's soon, because I got a big Gamma project that I'm going to be working on, which we'll talk about in just a sec. Alright, and that's Godzilla, of course, just roaring in rage at Batman. Let's see what happens next. Alright, here's a shot of the Batwing flying across Gotham City, and what's going to happen here is the Batwing is just gonna unload. It's going to fire at Godzilla. So we could see the blast of its armament just blazing through the rain-soaked skies of Gotham. Notice the buildings whizzing past. I mean, some flying in the foreground, others in the background. This is all a really quick, intense scene. You could do this practically, on After Effects without 3D. You don't even need moving environments. You could just actually use this with still images. If you would like me to show you how, let me know. And here's a shot that I love. So here's Godzilla. This is shortly after blasting that building to smithereens. He's surrounded by fire. Everything is gone to hell. And then he gets hit by Batman's artillery. Tries to even grab the Batwing as it flies past, and Batman barely survives this. But notice the attention to detail. The water is literally just blasting off of Godzilla's skin as the Batwing is blasting him. And notice how close it comes. Look how close Godzilla is to making the Batwing a snack. Oh man, I love it. Okay, Shaw says, great angles and effects so far with your previews. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. That is what I strive towards. And one thing that I want to show you guys that I'm really excited about, a companion to that scene, is what does it look like from Batman's angle, from the cockpit? What does it look like? What was Batman seeing in that shot? Here's what Batman was seeing. This is from Batman's cockpit as he's flying around, and there's Godzilla, and it just looks freaking awesome. Let's play that again. I cannot wait. Oh man, this movie is shaping up to be one of my favorites easily. Bar none. And here's a shot that I will close off on. I don't want to reveal too much, but this is a sequence that I am extremely proud of. This is Batman flying around a truly ravaged Gotham, but Godzilla, of course, is not going to let him get away with it. Let's take a look. That is just incredible. not to brag, but here Godzilla's tail comes up, and I love, it took forever, but I love how, you know, just like in the MonsterVerse films, the tip of his tail starts charging up, and then it goes down the tail, and then it goes up his spines, and that's when Batman just takes off, realizing what Godzilla's about to do. Love it. All right, so that is that. I don't think I got anything else that I'm going to share with you guys for now, but that is all, unless anybody has oh, yeah, Mittens. I like that Batman leans into the steering. Yeah, I thought that was a good touch. There are more similar shots we're going to see of Batman in the cockpit as he wages his war against Godzilla in an attempt, it could be a futile attempt, to save Gotham from Godzilla's wrath. I can assure you, Batman is full of surprises. He's no mere mortal. This is a lot closer of a fight than people might initially think. There's so much that's going to happen that I'm not going to, spoil just yet. So I hope you guys like that little special little preview. Yeah, everyone, I think today was pretty fun. We covered a lot. You got to see both a glimpse of upcoming Kaiju Karnage videos and also a little sneak peek of Godzilla vs. Batman, what to expect within the next month. Before I let you go, there are 2 big projects I'm working on after Godzilla vs. Batman Part 2 is over. Yeah, there will be more of those in the future, so that's something to look forward to. One project is called Gamera 4, Herald of Mothra. What would happen if at the end of Gamera 3, Gamera is visited by Mothra? She comes to Gamera's aid. That's something that's going to be so much fun. I'm not going to say anything else, but it's going to be crazy. It's going to take time to work on that, but expect, streams, expect some updates. That is a project I am pumped for. And here's another thing to consider. I am going to do how in 2012 this little movie called The Avengers came out, and there's this one epic little scene of how the Avengers assembled. It's like a full 360 of the Avengers posing, taking on like the alien invaders. until they're all, they pose, they strike a hero pose, and it's awesome. I am going to do the Titan equivalent to that, but with some of the most recognizable tokusatsu monster titans of them all. So you're going to get Godzilla, you're going to get Gamera, you're going to get Gamera, you're going to get Ultraman. I'm thinking of opening it up and having more. I want like Kuryu Mechagodzilla, I want Gypsy Danger, Mothra. It's going to be epic. I cannot wait. It's already going to be a fun project. It won't be a long one. I hope you guys don't watch that one coming in expecting it to be like a 7-9 minute video. It kind of breaks my heart every time somebody says, I wish these projects were longer, because so do I, but I can't do this full time, so it takes forever to, make them a reality. So the Gamera 4 video with Mothra will likely be 2-3 minutes. Godzilla vs. Batman Part 2, maybe 2-3 minutes long as well. A little bit longer if we include Part 1 into it. And the final Godzilla vs. Gamera video, the final Freudian slip there. Oh boy. The final Godzilla vs. Batman video, when all the parts are done, and we're probably a year away from that being the case, that one will be closer to a 9-10 minute video. But this Mighty Titans Assemble video I'm thinking of, that one will be short but sweet. It will be epic. You don't want to miss it. Alright guys, I am out of steam. I need to go eat. And yeah, so I hope you all have been, you all had a great time. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, I hope I hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. Thanks for stomping by, and I will destroy you all utterly later. Not really. I like you. But yeah. So stay safe. Love you guys. See ya.